thing before we get started is we are not asking any of you to become experts in mental health in an hour and be like, "Ooh, I can walk out of this room and diagnose the whole world." That is not the purpose of this meeting, okay? We're not asking you to diagnose anyone. What we're asking you is to be able to recognize and see some of the warning signs on either your own children or your children's friends or someone that you are maybe close to. That's what we're looking for, is what are those warning signs that we need to be paying attention to, and that will trigger some actions on my part, either for myself or my family or for a friend or their family, okay? So that's the main thing. You can go to the next one. So I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions, and if you don't mind, just show of hands. Have you ever wondered if your child was developing at the same rate as other children? If that applies to you, just raise your hand. And this is a judgment-free zone, so whatever we do here, it stays in this room and we're just a safe space for everyone, okay? Have you ever found yourself worrying about a behavior just being a phase or something to really be concerned about? That famous phase, that it's just a phase, it's gonna go away, or this is really something to look for. How many of you have ever been overwhelmed by your children's behaviors? I've seen not only hands, but some eyes kind of lit up as you answer that question. And last one, have you ever felt frustrated when having to work with teachers at school to address your concerns about children's behaviors? Okay? And again, I'm a school administrator, so I'm on the other side of school, right? So I understand. And trust me, there's nothing you're gonna tell me today that's gonna make me upset, because I know. Okay, I work in the school, so I can connect with that piece as well. Okay, so our time together again is to share those concerns, look at those signs, and really give you the information that hopefully you can turn back and use it for your own personal resources. Next slide. All right, what do you see on this slide? It says mental health affects. Can someone just pop out some of the things that are on this screen? What does mental health affect?
Physical health.
What else?
Long-term success. Ability to learn.
Relationships. Attendance.
Ability to learn.
Family.
Family, absolutely. Family, peers, school, community. You know, when I first read attendance, I'm like, you know, does people connect typically mental health with attendance? That's something that you typically correlate the two. I mean, I can tell you from personal experience, if I'm waking up a certain kind of way, it's really hard for me to go to work. Like, it's really, really hard. I have very good bosses and I have very good connections with them, and I will walk in and be like, you know what, today is not a day. I'm here, I'm physically here, but up here, not happening. But I'm here, and I'm gonna do my best, but it's really hard for me today, okay? So attendance for a lot of our children, it is a struggle just walking in that building and just trying to do something, because up here, we're not totally connected, okay? So like we read, mental health can affect a lot of different things in a person's life. Their physical health, that ability to learn, those relationships, that's so important, and it has an effect on those things, that long-term success, not only the today, but how does that impact me in the long run? And that's those developmental milestones as well are things that are impacted by mental health. So let's look at some statistics. If you have a number on your table, will you stand up, please? Some of you have a number on your table. If you have the number 1, will you raise your hand? So that's a combo right here. That's one person. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people are standing up and one person raised their hand. That's about the ratio of 1 in 6 people that are standing up will probably develop a mental health condition or has a mental health condition, whether it's diagnosed, undiagnosed, known, or unknown. So multiply that by, now we don't only have 6, now we have 12 people, so we're saying 2, now we have 24, we're saying 3 people, we're saying 30, we have, so keep multiplying. So in this small tight space, at least one of them will have that challenge, okay? Thank you very much I just wanted to give you that visual. So let's look at some of the other numbers. 70% of youth in the juvenile justice system has a diagnosed mental health illness. 70%. That's a big number, okay? And they're in the juvenile system, so they may or may not be getting all the resources and supports that they need. 1 in 6 youth ages 6 to 17. Who has children here ages 6 to 17? Those of you that have your hand raised, 1 in 6 of your children are probably going to experience a mental health disorder each year. Or we're going to get that diagnosis, or we're going to get that challenge coming up. Okay? Who has here ages 8 to 15? That's your age group. 50% of those children do not receive treatment. I myself was not diagnosed till college, my first round of diagnosis. My second round of diagnosis came at age 46. So between college and age 46, that was a 20-something year span that I was having challenges, and I didn't know because I didn't have those diagnoses that I now have at 47. Okay, and we're talking children ages 8 to 15. So the importance of that early recognition, that early identification is very important. It's critical that we do those things early on, as early as possible, because a lot of our children are not receiving the treatment that they need or the support that they need. 17%, who has a high school student here? 17% of high school students seriously consider suicide. That's alarming. And we said this is full transparency. I am a person that has lived experience, so I have no problem speaking from my experience. I had the suicidal thoughts. I started having them late high school, all into college. And they're not fun. Okay? It's rough when you have those thoughts in your head. It's really rough trying to navigate life and have those things in your head telling you otherwise. That it will be better for you not to be here. Okay?
I had a question.
We're gonna leave the questions to the end. Yes. Thank you. Make sure you write it down so you don't forget the question. Again, high school students with depressions are twice as likely to drop out compared to their peers. Depression is one of my diagnoses. For many, many years, I'm like, what's the point? I mean, there's no point. I don't see anything in this. Like, I'm doing this. I don't see what's the point. I don't see what's the benefit. I don't see what I'm getting out of this. Okay? So they're twice as likely to give up and be like, I don't see this. I don't see what's the need. Why am I doing this? They don't see the future past this year. Maybe past this month. They don't see anything else. Okay, so twice as likely to drop out of school. And half of all-time cases begin at age 14. When I got my first diagnosis in college, and again, my second set of diagnoses at age 45, at age 45, I called my mom, and I'm like, Mom, when did you realize that I was having some challenges? And she was like, when you were about 14. That's when I started seeing those changes in behavior, and I knew it wasn't just a phase. I could tell it was something more. But as early as age 14, you can see those cases starting to develop, okay? Before I continue, I'm gonna put a little disclaimer. This is not an easy topic to talk about, but we have to have those conversations, okay? These are conversations that need to be had. So please, as we go through the presentation, take care of your personal needs. If there's anything that I say or is being shared that is triggering for yourself, please take care of you, okay? I wanna make sure everybody's in a safe space and you take care of you. So many people do not get the help, many children do not get the help. So again, the focus of today is not to leave here with a diagnosis, oh, my child has X, Y, and Z. That is not our job. That is not my job to diagnose anyone. It is to look at what are those warning signs that I need to be looking for in case I have those concerns, okay? So when we say mental health conditions, there are conditions that affect your mood, the next slide, your thinking, and your behavior. Can you see someone's mood? Well, some people say yes, some people say no. I was really good at masking. I mean, I was the one that had to smile 24/7. But inside it was no smiles at all. But I could put in a good show for people. Like, people would not know at all that I was having the struggles that I was having, okay? So it affects mood. Can you see someone's thinking? Maybe not, unless they're verbalizing it. What about someone's emotions? It's not as clear cut as I say, I have a cut in my head, I have a broken bone, right? I have a bruise on my head. It's not as clear cut to be like, I see you and I see that you're having a challenge. I see that cast on your foot, or or I see the cast on your hand. It's not as easy to walk around and be like, oh yeah, she's having a mental health challenge. It's not as easy to see or recognize, okay? So when we say mental health condition, look at the slide on the screen. We're looking at a lot of different things. Here's some examples of what those could be. Attention deficit disorder, ADHD, right here. Depression, right here. It could be bipolar disorder, right here. It could be anxiety disorder, right here, okay? It could be disruptive mood dysregulation disorder. It can be eating disorders, right here. It could be depressive disorders. It could be schizophrenia. It could be a conduct disorder. These are a lot of different names for possible mental health conditions. And a lot of these overlap. So some of the symptoms that you see for one, you can see in another. So sometimes it's hard to decipher, is it one thing or another, because a lot of them have similar representations or similar conditions for what they are. So here's some examples. But again, the focus today is not to be like, oh, my child has number 1, number 2, number 3. It's to be able, again, to see what are those warning signs for me to say, I may need to look further into this. I may need to go and pair up with my child's teacher or my child's doctor or family member or someone to really continue moving forward with what I need to do. Next slide. So you can help recognize early on mental health by following these 4 steps to early intervention. One is to know the warning signs. Okay? What are those warning signs that it's like, that doesn't mean if you see a warning sign, it is automatic definition that there's a diagnosis. It's just it's an alert, something when you see that yellow light come on. It's not a signal to just speed over the car, it's a signal to stop because that red is coming and I need to put a quick stop. So that's what that yellow sign, that warning sign is. It's the reason for me to kind of take a little bit slower take and look at what's happening around me, okay? Step 2 is to reach out and respond. If you see something, say something, do something. This is not something to be like, let me just keep quiet about this. I love my parents to death. I'm Puerto Rican. In the Hispanic culture, you keep these things quiet. You don't speak about mental health. That's something we deal with it inside our house, with prayer, with God. We do not openly talk about this. So I've had to push my family in having those conversations. And it has not been easy conversations. But I'm like, no, we're gonna talk about this. We're not gonna keep quiet. So that reach out and respond, it's critical for us to, if we see something, we have to have those conversations. We cannot keep quiet, okay? A lot of things can happen if we keep quiet. Work with school, staff, and your child. At NAMI, we have a phrase that says, you are not alone. This is not an individual challenge. This is a community challenge. So if you see something, work with the school. Your kids spend sometimes more time at school than they spend with you, especially if they're in sports and after school activities and whatever it is. They get home school at 7:30, they may not leave school till 7:30 at night. I was one of those kids that was involved in everything that they had to be at school. So I spent the majority of my time at school, not at my house, other than the weekends. Sometimes the weekend was time spent at school or activities as well, okay? So the people at the school has a lot of information that they can share with you, and they can help you figure things out, okay? The staff and your child, don't be afraid to talk to your child and ask the questions. I wish my parents would have asked me a lot of the questions when I was younger, okay? I did some self-harming when I was younger, and it was to get attention because I wanted someone to ask me what was going on because I didn't have the words to say, I am feeling this kind of way. So I was trying to get attention, but nobody noticed, okay? Let's not wait for our children to do something like that to get our attention. So let's have those conversations with them. Let's have that opportunity to talk about things. And then step 4 is provide those resources and support. And part of our mission today for our meeting is giving you some of those resources and supports to know that, again, you're not alone and there's a lot of things out there that can help you, okay? In this early identification or looking at the warning signs. Because the earlier we identify things, the earlier we identify treatment, possibility of recovery is a lot better for our children. So knowing the warning signs is not only saying, oh, I see someone is doing blank. It's also looking at these three things. Once we notice a warning sign, we need to look at the intensity. How severe is that symptom, okay? Just say, I'm gonna stop eating. Okay, you're gonna stop eating. What is the reason you're gonna stop eating? Well, I don't wanna keep gaining weight. Okay, I get it. How intense is that feeling? Is it everyday thing you're trying to avoid to eat? Is it just a one-time thing? You only go to one event, you don't wanna overeat because you're having something the next day and you wanna feel comfortable? Or is it a pattern you see this is really kind of amping up all the time, trying to look for this particular symptom? The duration, how long does this last? Is this a one-day thing? Sometimes we have alarming behavior, but it's a one-day thing, and then it goes away. Or is it something that you see, it's day 1, it's day 2, it's week 1, it's week 2, now we're into a month of this behavior. We need to look at how intense it is, but also how long is this lasting, this particular behavior. And the level of distress, how much does it impair your daily functioning? I was really good at this level of distress. Again, I could mask it. So I was a kid that had straight A grades in school. So of course, a straight grade A student cannot have issues with mental health. Because I'm performing, I'm giving you what you want. I'm giving you the scores, I'm giving you the test, I'm giving you everything. I can perform, that is not a problem for me. Till this day, I can perform. So people sometimes look at me and they cannot see that I live and I struggle with mental health conditions every single day. It's not one day that I wake up and I have a struggle. It's not 2 days. This is an every single day for me. And I have to work every single day to manage those symptoms, okay? But I'm really good about hiding it. It didn't impair my daily functions because I was able to have enough coping skills in my system to be able to overcome that. But we're looking at these 3 things when we see the warning signs. How intense it is, how long is it lasting, and how is it impacting myself? That's the importance of connecting with your schools, because there's one thing at the home, it's a different thing when we're outside the home. Some people have the same things happening in both settings. Some people have very different things happening in the different settings, right? I could keep it very well at school because I knew I had to perform. Eyes were looking at me. At home, it was a little bit different. I could crumble at home because it was a little bit of a safer space. All eyes were not on me all the time. I could hide in the room and do whatever I needed to do in the room. I couldn't hide in the classroom because there were other students around me. Okay, so that's the importance of connecting with the school so we can see, is this something that's impacting both the home and the school, or one or the other, okay? And for that, we're looking at either typical or atypical behavior. So for example, if you feel nervous and distressed about an upcoming test, you're super nervous about a test. Once the test is done, you're good. Is that a typical or atypical behavior?
Typical.
It's typical. A lot of people get nervous with tests. But once the test is over, I'm gonna continue. But look at this. If you feel nervous and distressed over a test and it causes physical ailments or anxiety that causes you to miss class, this happens for every upcoming test. Is that a typical behavior or an atypical behavior? Atypical. That's not a normal thing for the most part, for every single test. So that may be something I I want to kind of look and see what's happening. Whenever I have an assessment or a test, I'm always feeling this way. And I cannot get over it even when the test is over. Okay? Next slide, please. So what can you see? What are some things that you can possibly see? At school and at home. Again, may or may not be the same. So some of the things that you may see at school, they miss class frequently. The quality of work declines. They were a certain kind of student, and all of a sudden, their work ethic, their work behavior, their work performance is different. They miss assignments or tests. They're extremely disorganized. And that extremely disorganized, sometimes they're just kids. Everybody's disorganized. Well, a lot of teenagers are disorganized, but we want to look at a little bit more besides just being a teenager. Frequently seeks special conditions. Shows patterns of perfectionism. That was a big one for me, the patterns of perfectionism. Responds very emotionally to grades, expresses violence, thoughts of death, hopelessness, social isolation, and schoolwork. So those are some of the things that you may see at the school. Again, are you physically in the school to see those as parents? No. Who can see those in the school? The teachers. Hence the importance of connecting with the school, because you may not see any of these behaviors. The teachers may. So it's important that you connect with them. Now at home, you may seem sad, hopeless, empty. You may have difficulty sleeping. Still to this day, sleeping is a major issue for me. Like, my sleeping is horrendous. And that's just something I have to deal with. Okay, my anxiety keeps me up at night very often. Lies and making up stories, high reactive to rejection or criticism, constantly runs late, unexpectedly rude, misplaces belongings, or is isolated and does not participate in social situations. So those are some of the behaviors you may see. Is this the only list of things? No. We're just looking at some of the things that, again, if you see that does not mean, oh, my child has a mental health condition, but it's just something to keep an eye for. Again, looking for that intensity, that duration, and what is the impact that these things have on their daily life. That's what we're looking for, okay? So if you look at your handout that you have on your sheet, the colorful handout, look for the side that says warning signs of mental health condition. And if I can have people just call out each one of these. So anybody can start on the first one.
Feeling very sad or withdrawn for more than 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Severe out of control risk-taking behaviors that cause harm to self or others.
Thank you.
Sudden overwhelming fear for no reason, sometimes with a racing heart, physical discomfort, or fast breathing.
Seeing, hearing, or believing things that aren't real.
Drastic changes in mood, behavior, personality, and or sleeping habits.
Extreme difficulty concentrating or staying still that puts a person in physical danger or causes school failure.
Intense worries or fears that get in the way of daily activities.
Throwing up, using laxatives, or not eating to lose weight, significant weight loss or weight gain. Using alcohol or drugs excessively.
Trying to harm oneself, attempt suicide, or making plans to do so.
And again, these are not an exclusive list, but here are some things that we can start looking out for. If I say, I throw up one day, automatically not a mental health condition. Am I throwing up every day? Am I doing it intentionally? Am I forcing myself to throw up? Is it impacting me not being able to go out and share time with my family or go out with my friends because I'm more worried about making myself throw up than anything else? That's what we're looking for. But here's some things that we can start having in mind as those warning signs that maybe be like, I need to kind of stop and take a little bit closer look at this. Maybe ask other people in my family, in my community, at the school, have you seen these behaviors as well? Is it a pattern that's repeated over and over? All right, so we're gonna do a little activity. I'm gonna read you some statements, and you're gonna say, and again, this is not right or wrong. We're not trying to diagnose, but we wanna see what we've heard so far. Are we able to see that's probably a typical behavior, or that may be a behavior that may indicate a warning thing that I need to be in the lookout for, okay? So first scenario, Kate has been avoiding her friends and saying she cannot participate in social get-togethers. She's spending more time in her room and keeps saying she's fine.
A possible mental health condition.
Something that we may need to look into a little bit more closely. Okay, because for someone to just say, I'm gonna start avoiding things, that may not be the norm, okay? Let's look at number 2. Audrey has made some drastic style changes in the last month. Wearing mostly black clothes, dark makeup, and listening to different music. Her grades have stayed the same, but she has changed her opinion on topics you used to agree on and has found a different friend group. Seems like she always has a new question for you on society, health, and global issues.
Typical adolescent.
I mean, kids just change how they look, right? They just go through that phase that we call,
Yeah.
right? And they try to find and, get along, find their groove, and find their people around. So that's a little bit more typical of teenagers. Let's look at this one. James has been wearing long pants and long sleeve shirts in 80-degree weather, complaining that he's cold. You've noticed that during stressful situations, he disappears in his room, then returns feeling calmer.
Atypical.
A possible mental health condition.
Okay? And that could be possibly even possible self-injury. If I'm going self-harm, if I'm going into the room and then come out feeling a lot calmer, that may be a sign. If I'm wearing long sleeves, what could I be possibly trying to cover or hide? Okay? It's hot. If it's 80 degrees, nobody should be wearing a long sleeve. Okay? You're not cold at 80 degrees. Let's look at this one. You've seen that Anna has been happy 1 minute, crying the next and angry, all in the span of what seems like 5 minutes. When you ask what's going on, she says she doesn't know, but is open to talking with you about how to support her through this time.
I think that's pretty typical.
Teenagers, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, they have like mood swings, I don't know.
Right? They just go up and down, but they're open to talking about you. Okay, so that's something that,
Yeah.
they're open about. That's a little bit more typical. Now let's look at this last one. You're shocked to see that Susie's report card shows she's failing several classes. She recently broke up with her boyfriend of 2 years. You've just learned that she's been spending time in chat rooms rather than with her friends. She's been sneaking out of the house at night, and you're concerned she may be using drugs. I see some.
Possible mental health.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess.
Depression and
Yes.
That one, it could go both ways, right? It could be a phase that they're going through, but it could be a sign. And again, we're looking for that intensity, that duration. How long is this happening? Is it a one-time thing that she just leaked out and came back and we're good? And how is this impacting her daily life? So that one can kind of go both ways, but that's why it's important to look at those three things: that intensity, that duration, and what is the impact. Next slide, please. All right, so now let's look at suicide and youth. And the word suicide is not a word that we want to hear, but it's a word that has to be said exactly like it is, okay? That is not a word to try to cover it or say it in a different, nice way. It just has to be said like it is, okay? From 2001 to 2017, the overall suicide rate increased by 31%. Alarming. It's the second leading cause of death for individuals ages 10 to 24. 10. Itty bitty babies. Okay, it's the second leading cause of death. Grades 9 to 12 in the last 12 months, 8.6% of students, they had an attempt. That means they had a plan, they knew what it is, they executed the plan. Okay? 17.7, they seriously considered. I was in that group of seriously consider. I never made an attempt, but I seriously considered many times, and I had the plan and I had everything. Okay? I was in that group. And 42.8% of LGBT students seriously considered. The T is not here because at the time of the study, the transgender group was not included in the study. Okay, students that lean forward for that or identify as transgender. So LGBT students seriously consider. Look at the difference. 17.7, 42.8 if you identify in this group. It's a huge jump from one to the other, okay? So even more alarming, even more concerning that we pay closer attention to those. And it's a rising concern amongst youth, for sure. So what are the potential risk factors for suicide? Look at this as risk. It doesn't say warning signs, it's two different things, okay? Potential risk factors: having previously attempted suicide. If you've already done it once, you're more likely to do it again. You already kind of experienced that, okay? Having a traumatic life experience: physical, sexual abuse, divorce, losing a parent. And trauma can be very different for very different people. Trauma doesn't have to be an excessive event, okay? losing a pet can be a traumatic event from someone. So the level of trauma really is defined by the individual. So we have to be careful. Sometimes we think trauma and we're like, I've never experienced trauma in my life, because you're thinking of very excessive behaviors, okay? But trauma is very defined by the individual. Having symptoms of a mental health condition, if you have a diagnosis, that's a risk factor for you to consider suicide. And being involved in bullying in any way. And we know bullying is not just physical, it's not just verbal, it's cyberbullying. There's a lot of forms of bullying out there, okay? So involved in bullying, all those are risk factors for you to consider suicide. Now the next one is common warning signs of suicide. So those were the risks. You're at a higher risk of committing suicide if you have those things. Now let's look at some of the warning signs. If you've talked, if you've written, or if you've drawn about death. That's not a typical thing to write about, or talk about, or draw about. But if you're doing that, that may be something to be in the lookout for, okay? Again, was it just one drawing? I saw a movie, I saw something, I just wanted to draw, or am I constantly drawing or talking or writing about this thing? Talking about having no reason to live, being a burden. I saw myself as a burden plenty of times. Nobody told me I was a burden. I saw myself as a burden plenty of times, okay? Or loss of interest in the things they care about. And I'm gonna add to this, giving away things they treasure. I have a special bracelet that has been in my life forever, and I saw all of a sudden I don't want it anymore. I'm giving my possessions away. That's another warning sign of maybe I'm considering suicide and I'm just giving away my things before the event happens, okay? And it isn't always obvious. That's why the importance of us really looking, really talking, really digging into what is happening. So remember that step 2 was reach out and respond. If you see something, you say something, you do something. If you believe someone is considering suicide, you ask the question. And the question is, are you thinking about suicide? There's a big misconception that if we ask the question, we're putting it in the mind of the person. That is not true. Nobody put it in my mind. I already had it in my mind. If you would have asked me, that was already in my mind. You did not plant that thought in my mind, okay? So the question has to be asked directly. Don't go around in circles. Don't try to think about, another way of saying it to make it less difficult. It is a difficult topic, but you want to be sure, is that what the person is considering? Not something else. You have to be very clear. So you ask the question directly. You do not leave them alone. They're like, yes, I'm thinking about committing suicide, and you just leave them alone. At that point, you have to be with the person. And you want to seek help immediately from the doctor, from a mental health service, from 911. Now we have 988, so make sure you put that number on your sheet. 988 is the mental health side of 911. So you can call and get resources, get support, get people to walk you through things on the phone. Or the suicide hotline, okay? So we have to take action immediately. Usually by the time a person is considering it, usually there's already a plan, there's a mean, everything has been put in place, okay? So we don't have a lot of time, we have to act immediately. And when warning signs are recognized, make sure you're intervening so we can lower that risk. So we talked about suicide, now we're talking about a non-life threatening. So someone that is not considering suicide, but is expressing challenges. We want to talk to that person, to that child, and or their friend, parents. You need to know who your kids' friends are. And it's not just, oh, that's her friend. What is her name? Who are her parents? What are their parents' names? Where do they live? You need to know that information. It's not just like, as an administrator, I get a lot of, I don't know who my kids' friends are. Who are you gonna go and reach if you don't know who they are? You have to know. Those are your children. You have to know who their friends are, who their family's friends are. Talk with school staff. Again, we saw that list of the behaviors at schools, the behavior at home. Talk to them and connect. What I'm seeing is the same thing that you're seeing. Maybe you're seeing things that I'm not seeing, so we need to have that connection. And talk with a healthcare professional. Involve them in the mix, okay? I have a team of people that support me. I have a counselor, I have a psychiatrist, I have a whole bunch of people that support me. It's not just one. You figure out who your team is that's gonna be around you, supporting you in that process. And you respond, okay? And you get that importance of getting to know your friends' names, your friends' families. So here's some things you can use to start the conversation. If you're like, I don't even know where to start having the conversation with my children. That's okay. Here's some things you can use. Tell me more about what's happening. Maybe if I understand better, we can find a solution together. Till this day, I talk to my mom every morning on my way to work. I was talking to her before when I was in the parking lot, okay? I don't always have the words to tell her about how I'm feeling, and I'm 47. But she will be like, well, just tell me what it is, and then maybe I can, by hearing you, I can try to understand. She may not always relate to what I'm going through because she doesn't have the same challenges that I have, but she's trying to understand, and she's asking me to tell her so she can try to understand me and what I'm going through. I'd like to hear more about how you're feeling. Their feelings are valid as their feelings, just like your feelings are valid because they're yours. Let's not dismiss people's feelings because it's not that big of a deal. You can handle it. You've gone through worse, or people have gone through worse, or whatever. Whatever the feeling, that's what they're feeling, that's their perspective, and it is serious to them, okay? Sometimes you need to talk about your feelings. I'm here to listen. What would you like to talk about? All I wanted many times was just to listen and hear. I didn't want you to fix it for me. I just wanted you to listen. Because there were so many things in my head that I just needed to get out. And that's what I want, okay? What's the name of someone else you'd rather talk to about how you're feeling? This may be a little hard topic. You know, you're the parent, you want them to come talk to you. Sometimes you are not going to be it. And that is okay. Sometimes your friends of you, your friends are gonna be the person that they feel more comfortable talking to. Or a teacher, or a counselor, or a pastor, whoever it is, may be the person that they feel more comfortable, and it's not gonna always be you. And you have to respect that. The important thing is that they have someone to go talk to. And that person, you would hope that they will come to you and tell you, okay? But you wanna be able to know and respect your child's decision on who do they wanna open up to. And again, your role is not to diagnose your child. You
So
have
what
these
is empathy?
conversations, is not to diagnose your child. It's to listen and look for those warning signs. And the more calm you are in those conversations, usually the more calm they'll remain in their conversations, is what I'm sharing with you. So empathy, we've heard about empathy and we're here about sympathy. Very similar words, we're going in two different directions, right? So let's hear about empathy and sympathy.
And why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, I'm down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
So empathy is based on connection. That doesn't mean you have to know, you have to relate, you have to understand. You want to connect. If you tell me, oh, I understand what it's like to live with depression, and I know you don't have that challenge, that to me is not gonna be helpful. I'd rather you tell me, you know what, I don't know what it's like to live with depression, but I wanna be here for you. Tell me, how are you feeling, and I will try to understand you better. That to me means a lot more than say, oh, I know exactly how you're feeling. You don't if you don't live with depression. You cannot understand how I'm feeling, okay? So make that connection with those people and show them that empathy. So the next couple of slides is how to work again with school staff, with personnel, with your healthcare provider. So with school staff, you want to share your concerns. Did you know you can always ask for parent meetings, right? Not just in parent conferences. You can ask for as many times as you want to, okay? That is your role as a parent, okay? And we as a school administrators, as school personnel, have a responsibility that absolutely you want a meeting, let's meet about it, okay? That's what it's for. Establish how you communicate. It's important that you say, you know what, it's better for me to communicate via text or via email, or rather you pick up the phone and call me and let me know what's going on, okay? We have different ways of communication, different forms. So it's important that you establish what's gonna be your best way of communication between you and the school. And ask about any classroom adjustments. If your child's in special education, they can get accommodations. If they're in a 504 plan, they can get some support, okay? There's things that can be done even for mental health that can help support your children in the classroom and in the school setting. So ask for those things. When we talk with healthcare professional, again, share your concerns. Ask an evaluation if is needed. I was diagnosed in college and I got reevaluated at 45 because I wanted to know more about it. I felt there was something more, so I got another evaluation. You can do more than one evaluation if you need to, okay? Ask for one if you feel it's needed. Ask for referrals. Do I need to see someone else? I have a psychiatrist, but I also have a counselor who I work with, because it's important for me to address things from different perspectives. And educate yourself. I cannot speak enough about that piece about educating yourself, especially if you don't have that experience. If you yourself do not have a mental health condition or do not identify as having a mental health challenge, then educate yourself about it. I've sent my parents to classes, and I'm 47, I'm like, you need to know this. I need you to look at this, I need you to look at this video, let's talk about this. Because I want us to have a common language when we're talking about things. I want them to have an understanding of what things are, okay? So working with your school staff, we kind of talked a little bit about this already, and your children. Sometimes we can get very emotional because there are children, right? Especially if we hear things that we may not want to hear. That can get very sensitive for us, okay? And it can get very uncomfortable. But we need to have those connections. We need to have those lines of communication open so we can get to the point of it, which is help support our children, right? And help them be successful and help them have the tools and the resources that they need to handle what they're going through. Alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. Again, you are not alone. You don't have to do this on your own. No one said it's you and you're stuck and there's nobody else. You can have a team of people around you to help support you in what you need to do, okay? So share, talk to people, communicate, it's super important. So things you can help your child with building resilience and well-being. Teach your child how to make friends, connections, and have empathy. People don't always know how to make friends. That's not as easy as it seems to, just make new friends. You're in a new school, just make friends. That can be really, really hard to make friends. Especially if you live with, I live with anxiety. That might not be, I'm gonna go and start talking to people. No, that is not my natural go-to. They should start talking to people. I'm gonna see first and kind of assess, is this safe for me to kind of engage? Like, I'm gonna be hesitant at first to start engaging with people, okay? So teach them how to make friends. What are some things you can say? What are some places you can go to start making those connections? Set goals and work on them at a reasonable pace. Setting goals, it's very important and it's very helpful because it gives us something to look forward to, especially if we're in a state of, I don't see the point of being here anymore. If I have something to look forward to, that gives me a little bit something to try to work towards, okay? Make sure your child maintains a routine. Routines are very important, okay? Especially in my hardest times, the stronger my routine, the easier it was for me to manage the challenges. Because I didn't have a lot, when I have blank spaces in my life, that's when the thoughts kick in and they have a good old time with my brain. But if I have a routine, it's easier for me to be like, I need to go from 1 to number 2 to number 3, and then my brain is occupied and going from one step to the next, and it doesn't leave too much spaces for those thoughts to come in and invade my head, okay? So routines are great. Taking a break and have unstructured time. It means it's time to also relax and decompress, okay? And learn how to have a positive self-view. If your child is one that's always saying negative things, help them reframe it, okay? I had a kid yesterday at work that they did something and they were like, I'm the worst kid in the world. No, you're a good kid, you made a poor choice. That's not the same as being a bad kid. You're a great kid, and I told them all the things that they were great for. You made a poor choice and we're gonna address the choice you made so you don't make it again. But that's very different than saying, I'm the worst kid in the world, right?
Yes.
So I helped them rephrase what he was saying. And he even wrote a letter to the teacher, and it was like, I hate myself. No. Let's rewrite this letter. Let's look at the language. You don't hate yourself. You're disappointed in your choice, which is different. So you can say, Miss So-and-so, I'm disappointed in the choice I made. I will do better the next time. Instead of writing, I hate myself, I'm the worst kid. So sometimes we need to help them rephrase some of the things that they're saying to themselves. Because it's very quick to go to very negative thinking, right? And help them see the good things in life to help them through rougher times. And that change is part of living and how good it feels to help others. Sometimes that gives purpose and meaning to people. Next slide. So connecting with the resources and, what's the one before that?
That was this one. You wanna pass this one?
There's a slide that's not, what's the one after that? There we go. Connecting with resources and support. Make sure you know who your connections are, especially at the school. Know your child's counselors. If your school has social workers, know who they are, okay? Counselors at a school have a different take on how they do things versus when you go counseling outside, like an individual counselor. A school set counselor is a little bit more restrained in what they're able to do, but they have a lot of resources that they can share with you. So that's always a good point of contact to talk to not only the teacher, but talk to the counselor, because a lot of times counselors see the kids a lot. You may not know about it, but they see the kids a lot, and they know about things that are happening. So connect with your kid's counselor, because they can give you a lot of information. And again, if your school district has social workers, that's another great person to connect with. Okay. For the sake of time, I'm gonna skip that discussion that we had, because I wanted to make sure that I honor your time. But here's a resource NAMI has, and all of the NAMI resources are free. We don't charge for NAMI resources. Our support groups, our classes, our trainings, everything is done for free, okay? NAMI Basics on Demand is an online program that you can take at your own pace, okay? And it's developed for caregivers, and it's developed for families, and it's developed for parents of children that are having some challenges. Do you need to have a child that has a mental health condition to do NAMI Basics? No. Okay? If you see your child struggling, having a challenge, that's something that you can do basics, NAMI Basics on Demand. It's a course for parents, for young children, talks about the facts about mental health, give you resources, provides you additional information. It's typically a 6-session program, but again, you do it at your own pace. So it's online, so you just go website, NAMI Basics, and you just do it on your own pace. You can do it as many times as you need to. If you feel you need to do more than once, take it again. So you can see the more information, okay? We also offer support groups for parents. So if you're a parent of a child and you have a child that has some challenges, whether it's a diagnosis or not, and you want to connect with other families, you can attend a support group. I started NAMI attending support groups for myself. You don't have to go every week or every time there's a support group. You can just go as needed. So you know what, this week has been really challenging for me and my family. I'm gonna go connect with other parents and see how do they feel, how do they connect, because sometimes in those spaces that you can connect and you can share similar experiences, there's a lot of value in sharing experiences with people, okay? So those are also available for you to do as well. If you have kids in high school or kids in college, we also have NAMI on campus, which are student-led programs that your children can bring to the school, usually through a counselor. They can bring and be like, you know what, I wanna start a NAMI on campus group. And that is a group of kids that are leading the conversation in their settings and talking to other students as peers about mental health conditions and mental health challenges. So there's options for you guys to use as parents, as families, and again, everything that we offer is all free, okay?